To talk with Billy Martin. What was his reaction?
George, he was very, very disappointed, and he was unhappy, of course, with the outcome. They had worked very, very hard to present Michael Vick to the judge as someone who clearly had accepted responsibility for his actions and was taking the full responsibility for what he had done. However, unfortunately for Michael Vick and for Billy Martin, it did not come across this way. There was this issue of whether or not he was truthful about whether or not he killed dogs and whether or not he actually admitted to killing dogs. Martin said that he did admit it, but there was this conflict, and then of course the flunking of the drug test and turning out positive for marijuana was a disaster for this for anything.
What impact will the federal sentence have on the pending state case?
Well, it's not going to have an impact on the state case unless the state sentence turns out to be longer than the federal sentence. If the state sentence turns out to be longer than the federal sentence, then it could mean more time in jail for Michael Vick, unless they can agree to do both of them concurrently, both sentences at the same time.
Vick should find out in the next 2 or 3 weeks exactly where he'll serve his time. Until then, he'll be in a federal detention center. For Roger Cossack, I'm George Smith, ESPN. Let's go back to the studio.
All right, George, Roger, Kelly, thank you very much. Let's bring Chris Mortensen in now. And Mort, good evening. What's the league, the NFL's reaction to Vick's sentence today?
Well, there's really not a lot of reaction. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell basically reinforcing what he had done before, which is this is an indefinite suspension that Michael Vick is serving, and that was once he entered his plea into the court. It basically acknowledged all the facts, for the most part, all the facts we already know, that he did admit to killing dogs in that plea. So they're going to wait for the legal process to come to a conclusion. That means when he gets out of jail before they evaluate it. Roger Goodell is a man with compassion. As commissioner, he's going to do what's right for the league. I really believe that if Michael Vick continues to take responsibility, changes his life, that he has a chance to get back into this league when this prison term is up. And I don't know that Roger Goodell will add to this. We just have to wait and see.
Mort, you talked to the owner of the Falcons, Arthur Blank, earlier today. What was his reaction?
You know, I asked him a question just because I've never heard him totally rule out Michael Vick coming back to the Falcons. And he said there are some set of circumstances which he could see Michael Vick coming back to the Falcons. He said, but basically we've moved on. Our plans are to move on without him. So obviously it's a long shot. But he said, I've learned to never say never. He said he actually spoke to Michael Vick 6 weeks ago on the phone, and that Michael again expressed his remorse, told the owner how much he loved them, but clearly there's been a lot of damage done. But the bottom line is the owner has left a crack in the door open for Michael Vick just in case, obviously just in case he doesn't find a quarterback in the next couple of years.
Well, thank you very much, Mort. We'll see you a little bit later. And Arthur Blank will join us from Atlanta later on in the show. So Michael Vick, as ruled in Richmond, Virginia, will serve 23 months in prison. So that you don't have to be a genius to figure out 2007, 2008, 2009. Let's bring in Steve Young now from Atlanta. And Steve, good evening. Have we seen the last of Michael Vick in the NFL? What do you think?
Well, Boomer, from an athletic perspective, you know, 29, 30 years old, nowadays, if you keep yourself in shape, you stay healthy, you can play well into your late 30s, even 40s. So I don't think athletically there's any question that Michael Vick will be able to play football and be a huge contributor to some team in the NFL. The other questions are all more political ones, and then more personal to him. Is he truly repentant? Has he really changed his ways? If he's saying the right thing? People are very forgiving, especially because he's going to have to pay a heavy price for his mistakes. If all those things happen, physically, there's no question he can come back and play in the NFL. Bill?
Well, you know, I agree with you, Steve. I think athletically, there's no question that he could come back and have the ability to be where his heart is, and does this time off really affect him and his desire to play? And even if he wasn't suspended, the NFL does have rules in place that do cover players' absences, like Michael Vick. Obviously, he can't report to camp. He could be put, if he wasn't suspended, on reserve, did not report. His contract would be told, and when he came back and was able to report, if the commissioner allows him to, then the contract would be resumed. So there's not going to be any contractual questions or whether he's an asset or whether the Falcons are going to cut him. It wouldn't make any sense for them to do that now because they still have.
Coach, I think he's going to have a chance to come back and play. He's going to be almost 30 years old when he gets out of prison, and I think there is historical precedent for him coming back to play. Now, I make the distinction between the guys who miss time in their respective sports by going to the armed forces. It's not prison. So yes, he's going to have to deal at some point with the court of public opinion once he's out of prison. But he's the greatest athlete I think that we have ever seen play the position of quarterback. So that said, I think that if he keeps himself in shape, as you would if you were in the armed forces, I think he will get a chance to play again, depending on how he handles the 23 months. Does, as Coach says, does his heart change? That's important.
And yes, he will have an opportunity to come back in the National Football League and play, but will it be at quarterback? I think that his style of play at quarterback is not widely accepted in the National Football League. But if I was a general manager when Michael Vick is on the streets and back ready to play, then he could be a running back, he could be a cornerback, he could possibly play wide receiver. I look at that from an athletic standpoint. I don't know if he's a franchise quarterback at 30 years old, missing time. You really have to know the position and prepare, and he's going to miss a lot of time for that. And like you said, a lot of people do miss time, but at the quarterback position, that's a tough one.
Key, I said this when he was indicted. I say it now that he's sentenced. He has a chance, and I know a lot of people cannot see this, to be the greatest story of redemption, at least one of, that we have ever seen. And that's what I'm hoping for this kid. I call him a kid. He's a young man, but that's what I'm hoping for.
Well, it's certainly possible, as you guys all point out. Just nuts and bolts for a moment. I mean, he's used to earning a lot of money. Where else would he earn even, obviously, just a little bit of what he used to make? But at 30, if he can play football, it would be more somebody back in the workforce, and I hate to just put it as that he could make playing football than he would anything else. So that's real life first. But you guys are right. Head and heart.
Heart, yes.
And we're rooting
Head
for those.
and heart, yes.
I don't think there's anybody that is not rooting for those. But Michael Vick won't be seeing him on the field, obviously, for a long time. On the field tonight, we'll see the New Orleans Saints against the Atlanta Falcons, and Drew Brees had a marvelous season last year, picked it up after a slow September. Can he have a hot December and get the Saints back into the playoff hunt? Still to come. Here's a guarantee you can bank on. We'll be talking Patriots Steelers. Why couldn't Pittsburgh keep it close? Why wouldn't New England let them? We'll be back.
Spend your Monday Night Countdown, delivered by UPS. What can Brown do for you? And in part by Lost, the complete third season. Own it on DVD and Blu-ray Tuesday, December 11th.
New starter Atlanta tonight. It's Chris Redman from Louisville. Now let's head down to the Georgia Dome. Quarterbacking our coverage tonight for Stuart Scott with more starts in the past 3 weeks than Atlanta starter Chris Redman has had in the last 3 years. That would be Sal Paolantonio. Warm up the arms, Sal. Good evening.
Good evening, Boomers. Steve Young, Emmett Smith joining me here at the Georgia Dome in Atlanta for tonight's game, Atlanta Falcons and the New Orleans Saints. Of course, this has been a tragic season for the Falcons, and now it is just brutal, Emmett Smith. What do these guys, what are they playing for tonight?
Well, tonight you have to look at the Atlanta Falcons and say these guys are playing for their jobs. Right now, the Falcons are in a transition mode. Michael Vick will be gone for the next 2 years, so now they're looking for players who will step up and be leaders in the locker room. Not only that, but leaders for the transition for this organization to go forward. Looking for guys like Warrick Dunn, looking for guys like Keith Brookins. You're looking for good guys that you can lean and turn to move this organization to another place and another level of positive energy.
Well, the game tonight, I'm not finding much interest in watching the Falcons, to be honest with you. The Saints are the team that's actually very interesting to me because this is a team that's leading the league in red zone offense. Is first in the NFC in third down conversions. These are stats that if you have those kind of statistics, you are a successful football team. But they're not successful. I'll look at their 2-game skid when they lost the Rams at home, who had winless at that time, and then went to Houston and scored 10 points. This is an underachieving to their talent football team that I think has been a very big disappointment, and I find themselves here on the cusp of maybe not even making the playoffs. Tonight, I want to see them start to play, as you've seen flashes of it, brilliant football. They are capable of that, and it's sad to think of them not even making the playoffs this year.
Well, the one thing that the Falcons need to be careful of is not quitting. Coach Bobby Petrino will be looking out for the guys who's going to go out on this football field tonight and lay it down. If you're that guy, you won't be with the Falcons going forward.
And you know, last week, Chris Redmond did not quit. In the fourth quarter, 2 touchdown passes in a losing effort against the St. Louis Rams. Now, for our Teams at 20 update, let's go down to Michelle Tafoya on the field with the Falcons. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, Sal. Well, you guys were talking about it. If you're with the Atlanta Falcons, what is keeping you motivated to continue playing? There are a few guys with a little more at stake tonight, starting with quarterback Chris Redmond, out of the NFL for 2 years, selling insurance in Louisville just a year ago. Well, he wants to prove himself valuable enough to keep around, at least as a backup. He told us selling insurance, that's the real world. This here in the NFL, this is a fantasy world, and he'd like to stay a part of it. Then there's former Saints wide receiver Joe Horn, now with the Falcons, and a little bit bitter about being released from New Orleans, and he told me, I want to stick the final dagger in the Saints' playoff hopes. And then there was a little altruism from 10-year veteran linebacker Keith Brooking. He told me, if you're worth anything at all and made of anything at all, you want to play out of principle. Now over to Susie Colbert with the Saints.
Well, I just spoke to Sean Payton, so here's the latest on Reggie Bush, who spent the morning in Birmingham, Alabama with noted surgeon Dr. James Andrews and had another MRI on his knee. The results basically the same as what the Saints doctors had found, that he has a torn PCL, that's a torn ligament in his knee. But the good news is the stability is good, so he will not need surgery. Now, if this was week 4, it would be an easy decision. They would just have him rehab. But because this is week 14, they have a tough decision to make. So tomorrow, Payton will meet with GM Mickey Loomis and determine whether they should put Bush on IR. And right now, Payton seems to think the indications are that they will. But they just want to wait and see if there's still a possibility if they can make the playoffs. If they win tonight, they're still alive, so they want to know that Reggie Bush is still alive with them. So Aaron Stecker gets the start tonight, and Sal, one more late injury note. Safety Josh Bullocks is out, and Kevin Casefaharn will get the start.
All right, thanks very much, Susie. Coming up, too much Moss, too much Welker, too much pressure. What Bill Parcells learned from the Steelers' meltdown in New England.
Welcome back to Monday Night Countdown, delivered by UPS.
Yesterday afternoon in chilly Foxborough, Tom Brady and the Patriots off 2 nail-biters against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Brady, Randy Moss, touchdown, 7-3, and guess who? Anthony Smith, who said, well, I guarantee the Steelers are going to, well, maybe not. 7-3, Brady. Moss, wide open, 63 yards, 14-3 New England. Now the Steelers made it 14-13 at 17-13 at that. Then a fumble on a lateral, then a beautiful throw back from Randy Moss, and then Brady to Jabbar Gaffney, 56 yards. And guess who's there? Anthony Smith got a good view, and the Patriots go on to win 34-13. And this just in, the Patriots are 13-0. We'll have more on this a little bit later, a little longer highlights, in case somehow you missed it yesterday. But Key, you didn't miss it. You actually went to the game yesterday. You got in the car after the show, and your thoughts on the Patriots getting certainly back to what they were doing.
I had the opportunity, as you know, to go down and watch the game. And, I mean, what can you say? Pure dominance. I mean, this football team took advantage of what I call a duck at the safety position. And I'm not picking on him, but they had problems against the Philadelphia Eagles in their secondary. They had problems against the Baltimore Ravens in their secondary. The Pittsburgh Steelers, from the start to finish, didn't match up well with this football team. And I think Bill Belichick and that staff, they knew this. And the one thing that Tom Brady wanted to do was go hunting. And he went hunting for that duck.
Yeah, I'm not picking on him, but you have to take responsibility for what you do and say in the National Football League. Anthony Smith plays in a suspect secondary, and he may be the most suspect guy in the secondary. You were targeted at least twice on scoring plays and numerous other times during the course of the day because you're guaranteed a win against the undefeated Patriots in New England. So I think you learned a lesson. You're a young player. You got a lot of time in this league. Hopefully it'll go better than it did yesterday. Here's a lesson. Be quiet. Just be quiet.
What I learned about it, that wasn't an Oregon Duck, was it?
They have funky uniforms.
What I learned about that game is that Pittsburgh's not the team that's going to threaten the Patriots in the AFC. In looking at the game, it was quite one-sided. And when you start evaluating the team, offensive line, Patriots have a better one. Defensive line, Patriots have a better one. Quarterback, Patriots have a better one. Firepower, Patriots have a better one. There are arguably a couple of positions that you might call even, all right? But the Patriots have too much in the right places, and Pittsburgh is not a threat to them in the playoffs.
And, Coach, in watching the game from the first half and sitting up there and looking at everything, Belichick, much like Coach Tony Dungy, make great second-half adjustments, and they made some tremendous ones. They knew, okay, we see something here. We're going to throw the football. We're not going to run the football because the secondary is extremely weak of the Pittsburgh Steelers. We're going to throw it. We're going to throw it a lot until you do something about it.
Did Anthony Smith say something after? Did he say he hopes to see them again?
Well, it wasn't defiantly. It was like, you know.
He said it. It doesn't matter, boo.
If he said it.
We'll see you in
his locker.
4 weeks.
Look, Anthony Smith went to Syracuse, right? He'll have the communication school there. Maybe he was trying to get his postgraduate degree in a little bit of communication. I downplay it. I know you don't.
No, I don't. No, I'm not downplaying it.
Look, here's what I see. Here's what I saw. New England played 2 close games, heaven forbid. I mean, it is the NFL, but not the best that they feel they can play. Their antenna were already up. They knew Pittsburgh was formidable at 9-3. They were going to play a really sharp game anyway, whether he spoke or not. That's just my.
It helped, Boom.
I didn't say it hurt.
Okay, instead of making the game close, 21-14, they were going to try to score 50 if they could.
You know what? The offensive line looked great, like Bill pointed out. And we talked about this on the Blintz, Tom. The numbers for Pittsburgh, and look, anybody can have a bad game, but, you know, pass defense ranked one, I didn't see that.
Bit deceiving.
The ball for 35 minutes. Yet what were they doing with the ball in the second half? I didn't like the play calling by Arians, frankly.
You didn't like the reverse on the 2-yard line?
Power, let's go. Power football. Get it. I mean, I don't know.
What Smith did was galvanize the mentality for New England.
There you go.
That's what he did.
Nice, Coach.
And if this is what New England looks like galvanized, look out. We'll have more on that later. New England's last regular season loss. This seems hard to believe. Joey. 365 days ago, Joey Harrington to Marty Booker and then Matt Grapes of Roth with a sack of Tom Brady. The Dolphins shut out the Patriots and Brady 21-0. What's happened since then? Regular season, New England's won them all. Miami's lost them all. No matter what you look at the numbers, turnover and points, 0-16, 16-0 since that point in the regular season. Yikes. And they play next week. What could happen? Coming up, Bill and Coach Ditka boiling. You might think the G-men have the best chance to beat the Pats, but that's not necessarily the case. And more from Atlanta. How did the Falcons move on without Michael Vick? Owner Arthur Blank will join us live on the set. We'll be back.
Well, our coaches aren't always grumpy. Mike Ditka, Bill Parcells. But yesterday we saw something in the Patriots-Steelers game. Of course, the Patriots won it. But Anthony Smith, the Steelers safety who had popped off during the week, guaranteed a win. It's clear the Patriots made him a target and didn't appreciate his comments. If you're the coach, how do you handle a player like Smith popping off and guaranteeing a win?
Well, you don't like your players to pop off. You never want them to pop off. I mean, all it is bulletin board material. This guy's a backup. I mean, but if I knew it would bother the Patriots as much as that bothered the Patriots, I'd have all my guys pop up. Maybe they would have went after everybody and they couldn't have got somebody. I mean, that was ridiculous the way they responded to it, in my opinion.
Well, they won the game, Coach. I mean, they won it. The Patriots won the game and won it in impressive fashion.
They lost the argument.
They didn't lose any argument.
I'm with Mike. I mean, I don't like guys mouthing off, especially a nondescript player like that. I mean, You'd like for one of your guys that could do something about the outcome to be the one saying something. Somebody that's going to lead the charge or carry the flag or do something of that nature. But these guys that, you know, they watched Muhammad Ali a long time ago. He's going to go and say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. They learned young.
Kind of been passed down through the generations, because some of them wasn't born when Muhammad Ali was in his peak, certainly.
Good point of reference, though.
Absolutely. So the Patriots are undefeated. They're 13-0. They play the Jets and Dolphins next 2 weeks. So let's just assume they win those games. They're playing the New York Giants to end the season. But the Giants, suppose they have the 5th seed wrapped up. How does Tom Coughlin, does he play for history and play it to win, or does he rest his guys?
Well, I'm not speaking for Tom, but I do know him pretty well, and I think that situation is really a simple one. As a head coach, you're not worrying about history or anything of that nature. You're worrying about getting your team sharp for the playoffs. So if a guy's nicked up and he'd be better off by not playing and have him ready to go the next week, that's probably what happened. If there's an older player, maybe he's out of gas and he needs a little rest, maybe that'll happen. But other than that, he's charged with getting his team ready to go in the playoffs, and that's what he'll do.
I think it was '84. I needed a win, or I needed a Detroit loss, I guess, to get into the. Detroit lost the last game to get into the playoffs, and they played Buffalo, and Buffalo set everybody, and of course Detroit won, and we didn't get in. That's okay. That's the way people play. That's fine. I'm not that way. I play my guys. I mean, I would have said to Walter, you sit down. He'd say, Coach, I ain't sitting down. I don't care what it is. You know, you get paid, you play. You get paid. I agree with what Bill said. Guys nicked, that's different. You got an older guy, that's a little bit different. You play to win the football game. That's why you get a paycheck. If you don't play on Sunday, don't go get the check on Tuesday.
Is it out of bounds for Commissioner Goodell to tell him, we need you for the integrity of the game to play it to win?
It's not out of bounds. Whether he does it or not, I don't know.
I mean, he can say whatever he wants to say, but at the end of the day, it's the coach's choice and the organization's choice. How do you approach it? Maybe Mike and I are old school, but I'm with him on that. There's 16 games. All of them are important to the people that are playing in them. Or they wouldn't schedule 16. They'd only have 15 or 14.
Yeah. Don't know if you can argue with that, guys. Thanks a lot.
Welcome back to Atlanta, the Georgia Dome, site of Monday Night Football. The guy who turned on the lights in the NFL football here in Atlanta was Michael Vick. He just exploded onto the scene here in 2002. As you can see by the numbers, they were just far more successful with Michael Vick at quarterback. Without him, the lights have gone out in the offense. It has been positively pedestrian, especially in the running game. Steve Young, when you look at the fall from grace for Michael Vick, I mean, he was the face of this franchise, obviously. He was the highest paid player in the National Football League, and now he is in jail. And you see him going to the court system today, going in front of the federal judge. What do you think he was going through, Steve?
Well, I talked to someone who spoke with him just recently from jail, and I think that the feeling was that it was a very repentant Michael Vick, a very humble Michael Vick, a Michael Vick that absolutely wants to make things right. It's, the follow-on from what you saw his last statement in the public, I get a sense that he recognizes the full weight of what's happened. He recognizes that he's done something that it was wrong, and he wants to fix it. And if it's possible to fix it, he will do it. I get a sense also that he really understands how lucky he was and how he would like to reclaim some of that. And that's what we all want for people, is to be repentant and to pay your dues and then try to make a comeback. And I think that's the attempt that he'll try to make. I get a sense that he's lonely and wants friends to contact him and people that want to support him, because I think that at the end of the day, the fall from grace has been immense. But how you handle it at the bottom is just as important as how you handle it at the top. And here he is at the bottom, and it seems like, what I'm hearing, that he's handling it the best that he possibly can.
Well, that's the only thing for Michael Vick to do. And the thing that I'm concerned with, I know Michael Vick has shown us a fall from grace, but also he has an opportunity to show us a recovery. The ones who are on the fence, who are thinking about doing something bad or thinking about doing something good, he will affect their lives forever, because he is a proven example of how you have an opportunity placed in your hand, like the National Football League, and your ability to do things and earn a living as a man in this league and blow it. So this right here, this opportunity that Michael Vick is showing us now, obviously is repentance, but it's also a wake-up call for a lot of us. And we need to hear this message. We need to see it. and learn from it and take it and move forward.
And we want this to disseminate to colleges and high schools, so they have the moral,
That's-
coaches have
that's
the
the
moral
key.
authority to
That is
tell a
the
high
key.
school kid, don't act that way, because in the pros you won't be able to act that way, in the colleges you won't be able to act that way. That would be very helpful for everybody.
Well, the Atlanta Falcons are still obviously reeling from this situation. Over 7 months after the start of the investigation, 3 months after Vic confessed, the Falcons are still trying to figure out a dysfunctional quarterback situation. Coming up on Monday Night Countdown, Falcons owner Arthur Blank will be here live on the set to talk about the sentencing of Michael Vick and what happens next for the Atlanta Falcons.
Whiteboard Breakdown, delivered by UPS. What can Brown do for you?
Welcome back, everybody. We go back to the Patriots' big win over the Steelers yesterday by 21 points. Time the UPS whiteboard. Patriots didn't run much, but they had a big run by Moreeeee at one point in the game. So that whole thing set up play action because they looked like they knew what they were doing.
They don't have to run a lot to do what they do, but there's nothing more fundamental to good defense than knowing tendencies and reading your keys. I'm going to show you a couple of examples. Week 1 against the Jets. Going to see Randy Moss at the top of the screen coming in motion. That's the tendency. It is not a run. Randy Moss is not being put in motion to block. Reading the keys, offensive line is pass blocking. That means it's a pass, even though Brady carries out a play fake on the run. End result is a touchdown down the field. Take a look at this closer at the line of scrimmage. You see the DBs of the Jets looking in the backfield, puts them a step behind. Randy Moss, tremendous speed. Tom Brady, tremendous arm. Result, a touchdown. Fast forward to week 13, Randy Moss in motion. That's the tendency. It is not a run. Look at the play fake. Look at Russ Hochstein, the guard, coming around. There's nobody to block. It's all window dressing. Great play fake. Randy Moss on the end of it with a touchdown. Again, take a look at this from the perspective of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Eyes in the backfield. That's Ike Taylor. And Anthony Smith, look where he is by the time he reads it. If he's looking at the line of scrimmage, if he's reading the offensive line, he knows that it's a pass immediately. He's able to get back in a drop. If you don't do those sound fundamentals, you're not going to be successful playing defense.
So by him not reading it, it guaranteed that would be a touchdown.
He guaranteed that they would get a touchdown on the other end.
All right, Tom, play action. When you do it great, it's as effective as any weapon in football, that's for sure. Let's bring Mort back in now. Yesterday's games, other than the Patriots and the Steelers, a number of quarterbacks took some questionable hits yesterday. The hitting was harder yesterday than we've seen in a while across the league, watching all the games. Does the league have its eye on this? Brett Favre included here, the hit against Oakland?
Chris, no question about it. The league was busy looking at a lot of these hits on quarterbacks, 5 or 6 of them involving playoff potential quarterbacks. And, of course, Brett Favre topping the list. There was Philip Rivers, there was Vince Young. You saw that hit that Sean Merriman did on him there. But the league is certainly going to send out, I think, some big-time fines this week, and also a memo to its own officials is protect these quarterbacks. Maybe you think overprotective, but they're not going to have Brett Favre go down because of a low hit. Derek Burgess of the Raiders hit him on one. Mike McCarthy of the Packers complained about that. Mike Holmgren of the Seahawks complained about a low hit on Matt Hasselbeck. So, yes, there's going to be some people warned this week, and some people are going to get fined.
And you know, it pains me to say this, Mort. That's it for any resurrection of Rex Grossman. He's out. So the Bears, now what? We going to see him next Monday night against Minnesota? Do they go number 3?
Boom, it's the resurrection of Kyle Orton. Kyle Orton, who as a rookie in 2005 went 10-5 as a starting quarterback. And they didn't ask him to do a lot because of that great defense, but he still went 10-5. He was a 4th-round pick out of Purdue. Guys, 4, has a pretty darn good live arm. And at this point, with 3 games left in the season, they've got some decisions to make. One is with Rex Grossman, do they offer him a contract next year? Not a big contract, but a contract to bring him back. He's out for the season. And now with Kyle Orton, could he be our future quarterback? We may have to draft him. We may have to go sign one. Let's see what Kyle Orton looks like 3 years down the road now.
Why not? He won there before, but that defense that he won with and that defense they had last year was a lot better than the defense that they have this year. We'll see them Monday night. Thank you, Mort. The New Orleans Saints. But they found gold with the late-round pick a year ago, Marcus Colston from Hofstra, Flying Dutchman, warming up for the Saints against the Falcons at 8:30 Eastern Time. Now let's head back to the Georgia Dome. Ed Werder, the reporter, with Teams at 20 report on the Saints. Ed?
Boomer, I talked to Saints quarterback Drew Brees a few minutes ago on the field, and he said, I'm as confident in this team as I've ever been. That said, without Deuce McAllister, without Reggie Bush. In fact, tonight it's Aaron Stecker, the veteran, starting at running back. But I'm told the player to watch at that position is rookie, undrafted free agent Pierre Thomas. Sean Payton really says he has exceptional vision and great balance. And it's interesting to note that this undrafted rookie beat out a fourth-round pick at the position, Antonio Pittman of Ohio State. And Payton told me, quote, it wasn't even close. George Henshaw, the running back coach, said, if you're going to dump a pick, that's the way it has to be. There can't be any doubt about it, and there isn't in the minds of the Saints. For an update on the Falcons, here's Bob Holtzman.
Well, Ed, Michael Vick's best friend on this team is Algie Crumpler, and Crumpler told me today he didn't watch the coverage this morning. In fact, he says he didn't even turn on the television. I asked him what he was doing when the news broke. He said, I was in my hotel room ironing my suit. I asked Crumpler if all this reality sort of set in for him today. He said it actually hit him yesterday at a strange time. He told me he was watching the Patriots-Steelers game, and he saw Tom Brady and Randy Moss joking with each other on the sidelines. He said it was at that time that he realized that's what he's missing without Vick here. Chris, Crumpler also told me he's not surprised by the 23-month sentence. He said this was a statement case from the start, and he said he expected a statement verdict.
All right, Bob, certainly all the Falcons talking about that. They get a game to play, though. Still ahead, a Sunday supercharged comeback for San Diego, something they've never done. But today, did Sean Merriman accuse Jeff Fisher of targeting him? And a happy conclusion for one of the dogs rescued from Michael Vick's property. A feel-good story that we'll all enjoy. Coming up. Stay with us.
Mike Vick lining up in the shotgun formation. Mike Vick, who's been hounded by accusations. What has been questioned are his off-field activities.
Now I don't want to hear that question again.
Illegal dog fighting at the heart of the indictment.
An indictment is not a conviction.
It's all about judgment, you know, and I'm protecting myself.
Vick participated in the execution of dogs.
What we stand for.
He has agreed to a plea agreement and he will admit his
First,
guilt.
I want to apologize. I will redeem myself. I have to.
It's been about 8 months now since we learned about Michael Vick's involvement in dogfighting. We've covered many facets of the story, from the legal to the football to, of course, the public reaction. What about the animals who bore the brunt of all the cruelty? With more on those dogs and one story of salvation, here's Jeremy Schaap.
When authorities raided Vick's property in rural Surry County, Virginia in April, they found barns where dogfights had taken place, training equipment, medical supplies, and all the grisly apparatus of Vick's illicit dogfighting business, Bad News Kennels. The authorities also found 66 dogs who were still alive, more than 50 pit bull terriers, the fighting dogs, along with 9 beagles, 2 Rottweilers, and 1 Italian Mastiff, also known as a Cane Corso. Just a few weeks ago, Pam Wilhite adopted Abby, one of the beagles.
What do you think about Michael Vick?
You don't want to know.
No, I do.
I think he should have to go in and mop out the rooms that they stay in. I really do.
But you don't want him coming here to clean
I
up
don't know.
after
I do
Abby.
not want him anywhere near my Abby.
In your situation here, it's had a happy ending.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it has. Thank God it's had a happy ending.
Thank you very much, Jeremy. You can see the rest of that story on E60 tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. Now we go back to Atlanta and Sal Paolantonio. Sal?
Thanks, Booner. Joining me now is Atlanta Falcons owner Arthur Blank. And Mr. Blank, thank you for joining me. First of all, Michael Vick was sentenced today to 23 months in federal prison, far more than the prosecutors had originally asked for, but the federal judge came down on him pretty hard. What kind of message do you think the judge was sending to Michael Vick, dogfighters in general, and maybe NFL players?
Well, I think, it's pretty clear that he went, beyond, the expected sentencing, and I think he did that because he felt that the the nature of the crimes were very significant. I also think he felt that Michael had been something less than forthcoming, even since he agreed to the plea arrangement. And I think that the judge views this as he should, as an act which needs to stop across America and needs to send that message to everybody. This is going to be taken in a very serious vein. I don't think it's about Michael Vick, the individual. I think it was about the crime. I think it's about what he had done, and I think that given the situation with the marijuana and given the situation that the facts that he saw that we didn't see in terms of whether or not Michael had been completely forthcoming with all the people that he indicated he was going to be, was debatable. So I think all that added to the sentence.
Right. He tested positive for marijuana after confessing.
Right.
Now, you said today that you're moving forward as if Michael Vick will not be back.
Right.
What did you mean by that? What plans are you putting into motion?
Well, I think, we have to assume Michael, although he's still under contract with us, his contract tolls until the suspension is lifted by the commissioner at some point in the future. He's clearly not playing football in 2007, 8, and probably 9, 3 full years. How he's going to, feel and look athletically and mentally when he comes out after that period of time, we can't wait. We need to focus forward. Our coach does, our general manager does, I do, our fans do. We owe it to everybody in the National Football League and primarily here in Atlanta, to our fans that have been incredibly supportive, to make sure that we move forward. So we're assuming Michael's not going to be back as an Atlanta Falcon. I wish him redemption. I wish he grows through this. I wish he's back on the field in the National Football League, and we'll see what happens from there.
Well, let's deal with the specifics. As of now, you have the 5th pick in the overall draft next year, 2008. Right. How much of it priority will it be to put a franchise quarterback in an Atlanta Falcons uniform with that first pick in the first round?
Well, I think it's always important. As one of your colleagues, Ron Jaworski, said, in the NFL, you don't win consistently unless you have a franchise quarterback. We've had 4 quarterbacks this year, including Michael. We don't tip our hands in terms of the draft, but obviously we have certain needs, and quarterback would be high amongst that priority list.
Thank you very much for joining me. Arthur Blank, the owner of the Atlanta Falcons. Coming up next, a dramatic comeback in Detroit. John Paul George and Romo Mania rolls on in Big D for the Dallas Cowboys. And the coach who blew the whistle on his mentor gets ready for round 2. Uh-oh, how ugly do we expect it to get Sunday in Foxborough? Stick around.